LARPing. So, OnlyLarping, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
Hey guys, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, honestly, it's been way too long getting you on this show, and I mentioned before you came on, I'm not like a combat sports guy. I'm not like a UFC guy. So, for many, I think in the Hedera ecosystem, karate combat was like an introduction to that kind of sport. And so, um, I want to just quickly ask you, things have probably been like super busy for you since announcing up layer 2. We just were looking at the Decrypt article. Like how is the last couple of days been? I think it's been like 5 days, probably pretty crazy, eh?
Well, the same day we announced it, I don't know why we always do this to ourselves, but the same day we announced it, we also had a Karate Combat event,
Yeah.
which went quite well. One of our best for sure. Um, and so for me, like getting through the announcement was a big relief
Yeah.
because that's really my jam, and I got to enjoy the event. Um, So yeah, I'd say the hype around the event was pretty fantastic. I felt like the announcement was received quite well.
Hmm.
So I'm happy about all of it.
Yeah, that was really awesome. And I mean, I titled this show "Breaking the Rules," and I know we're going to talk about up layer 2 and like all some of these other different components and everything. But I mean, when it comes to breaking the rules and saying that kind of, karate combat obviously is breaking the rules in so many different areas when it comes to crypto and just kind of combat sports. But then when we talk about the Hedera ecosystem, I know that many in Hedera were like, oh, we're never going to need a layer 2. It's all this, all that. And then you see like, oh, we've got a layer 2 now. So I have to admit, for me, I was like, whoa, this kind of came out of nowhere. And then to your point, the headlines start coming, the sentiment starts coming, the tweets start coming, and it starts to feel right. And so maybe one of my first questions for you, just really quick, was like, why do a layer 2 on Hedera?
For sure. So we tried to lay out a rationale in detail, and I guess the headline is it's not about scalability and low
Hmm.
fees. Like Hedera has that already, right? But I think that we only know why we created our L2, which has some pretty good business rationale behind it. But I think there's going to be so many other business rationales beyond scalability and fees for people to launch their own L2s. And so I'll talk about why we did it. So first, to step back, why we want to spread up on the gaming at Karate Combat. Um, we're really, really intrinsically motivated to make it spread as fast as possible for a number of reasons. Number one, from just like a cultural and education standpoint, everybody in the world knows what gambling is.
Right.
Only a few 100,000 people know what up only gaming is. We can't get up only gaming in the dictionary ourselves in the next year. If we can get 10 or 100 other projects using up only gaming, it can spread so much faster. It can become
Right.
a real thing within culture. And also, if we do it right, ideally, we can all share users, right?
Mm.
And so user acquisition can kind of like exponentially like skyrocket. And also from a crypto capital market standpoint, Crowdy is like a trailblazing token, which is good. Like it's first of a category,
Mm.
but eventually you want to create a category. You want that category on CoinGecko of like other up only gaming tokens. So that's like the intrinsic motivation behind it. And so, since we really want it to happen, the question is, okay, how do we make it happen as fast as humanly possible? Maybe the right way isn't to just like hire a BD team and go out there and try and sell it to people. Maybe using new kind of like crypto native ideas, we can actually give it away for free.
Mm.
And that's what Up is about. It allows us in a sustainable way to give all of our software away for free to any other project that wants it, um, to easily share users amongst each other, and ideally to even give them grants to accelerate the process. And that's what Up allows us to do. It allows us to license this software in a brand new way. Um, yeah,
I love that. Yeah, it's like modern software licensing. And you know, I want to get into it more, but I mean, just because I have you here and just because I'm curious, you mentioned before, like you're more of a Web3 guy. So my question is like, why, from your perspective, take the sports angle with Karate Combat on Hedera, right? I'm just going kind of back a little bit to the beginning here is like, of course, now we know like the strategy's working pretty well, like with all the events. But from your perspective, going back to those early days of Karate Combat, what were the factors that made you decide to mix, combat sports with Hedera?
Sure. I mean, I think even one step back is like, why mix karate combat with Web3?
Right.
Which is,
Right.
it's not obvious at first. And I
Yeah.
think, when people first come across it, they think, oh, this is kind of weird and maybe a little silly. But actually, we had a very good business rationale. Karate Combat has this very large awareness. We've got 6 million followers, we've got hundreds of millions of views per month. Um, but taking that really large awareness and converting it to true super fandom, like where the real value is in sports, that's not trivial. It's not easy.
Hmm.
Frankly, it ordinarily takes like a lot of time or a lot of money to
Right.
build these new stars. And our thesis was, we've built up a demographic of younger fans, right? And our thesis was that if we financialize things a little bit, we might be able to speed that conversion up. Because if you pull our demo, almost half of them will tell you that they don't enjoy watching sports unless they have a bet on it.
Right.
They grew up playing games, using social media. They expect a level of interactivity and access that you just don't get from passively sitting on the couch for 4 hours. And
Yeah.
so, if we could get them a little financial upside on every fight, maybe we can get them actually researching the fighters ahead of time, learning their names, their backgrounds, their narratives. That's what it really takes to get someone emotionally invested in
Right.
a sporting event. Like, if you don't know the names of the athletes, like how much are you really gonna emotionally care? You might be like, "Oh, that's an amazing knockout." But if unless you kind of like feel like you know this person, like why are you rooting for one or the other?
Yeah.
And so that's why Web3, why Hedera. Frankly, I have to give the hats off to the HBAR Foundation. In this is almost 3 years ago. Karate Combat was talking to many of the layer ones out there. We knew we needed something kind of scalable, fast, cheap to really reach millions of sports fans. We knew that we needed a killer UX,
Hmm.
right? And we talked to the foundations at most of the layer ones at the time, and frankly, they just believed in our vision and saw it. It's a weird idea, right? It doesn't look
Yeah.
like anything else in crypto before.
Yeah.
But some of the people at the foundation had some pretty serious like expertise and experience in media. They did the research to see like, hey, this isn't just like a quote unquote karate league. Like this is a real serious sports league, and what they're doing on the VFX side of things is really impressive. And the crypto idea makes sense. And, I think they just took the time to kind of do the work and believed in it and supported us and we partnered up. And so the Hashgraph itself like kind of meet our requirements. And then the HBAR Foundation sort of believed in our vision.
I dig that, and you make a good point too. And I think this goes for all projects, which is like, your business plan, your product, your vision was already pretty well established, and your execution on it was already starting to kind of be refined. Like you brought up the visual effects and different things. Like it's pretty incredible. So that's really a key. Is like you do have to start to get your project to a point where it's not just an idea. It goes a little further than a demo. And I mean, watching the broadcast, even the early ones, there is a lot of freshness to Karate Combat, and you can start seeing other people kind of borrowing ideas from Karate Combat now. But it's about like just being innovative and executing on it. So I love that.
Thank you.
Now, this was probably one of the most interesting aspects of Karate Combat as a project that I think I see you kind of speaking to often on X and stuff like that, which is, um, you know, Karate Combat, is very different from a lot of projects, but most notably when it comes to like VC investment, IP ownership, control for holders. Most notably, I was just talking about this on the show earlier. You allow the broadcast to be freely consumed, repurposed, chopped up. You guys even put out a tweet that, inviting people to take the content and use it.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little about like your approach to these things? Like, why don't more brands take this approach, and why are you kind of so gung ho about just really being open with this stuff? And almost like, I see your post about VCs and I'm like, man, this guy's like off the rails on this stuff. I love it.
Sure. So on the content side of things, I think it's a bit path dependent. Um, Mature sports generate upwards of 80% of the revenue from media licensing, and much of that revenue is locked in, going back to other places, athletes, infrastructure. Um, Overhead, and their deals with distribution are quite restrictive. So they don't necessarily even have the liberty to allow
Right.
people. They definitely can't allow a streamer to come in and just stream pit side on their own Twitch channels and stuff, right? They got a serious amount of approvals and paperwork to ever let that happen.
Right.
Um,
Even if they wanted to, they can't.
Yeah, so there's definitely a path dependent part of it, but then I also think there's just like kind of a cultural aspect to it. I think when Dana White goes on TV and threatens to send all the streamers to jail, it's not just the kind of the rights issues. I think it's also kind of like an internal view on how content should be monetized, and I think in general people are looking forward, probably think that content is, monetization is going to change. Like,
Hmm.
how hard is it to get a 20-year-old guy to pay for a pay-per-view? like
Right.
like
Yeah.
impossible, right? Like, they're streaming, they're playing with TikTok all day and watching Twitch and stuff. Like, that's what they grew up doing. Like, are they gonna like turn around and pay $80 for content? Like, actually, no, right? They're just gonna watch the highlights, or they're gonna rip it off. And so it creates a big opening, um, if you can figure out how to get the content paid for in a different way, um, to grow with this audience, by giving away the content for free. And if you're gonna give away the content for free, then you better go nuts with it, right?
Right.
Like, why just do it in one place? Why not have it everywhere? And why not invite as many people to make content on it as humanly possible?
Gotcha. Yeah. Like, you bring up the Dana White stuff, and it's like that reminded me of when Metallica was like freaking out about people on Napster and different things like
Uh
that.
huh.
It's this push and pull with content, and yeah, you're right. There's two sides to it. It's either they want to but they can't, or it's just culturally baked in to a point where they're just stuck in the past. Sometimes it feels like,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of money to be made in the past, that's for sure. But the future is, it's where it's at. And
Yeah.
I think that that's really what it's all about. And then also too, like you talk about the VC investment side of stuff. Like, you really make a point to make it clear that, Karate Combat is owned and effectively governed by the karate holders, and you kind of criticize some other projects that might have an overweight representation of VC and different stuff like that.
Yeah,
I thought
actually,
it was very
so I actually it's not necessarily VC. VCs have been incredibly supportive of Karate Combat. We have incredible investors. Actually, my point is a little bit more on the structuring.
okay.
So, um, actually, most crypto projects that you see the token, but somebody else also owns the equity.
Mm,
And normally that's the founders and the investors. Um, it's another one of these kind of path dependent things. A lot of VC funds, they're set up not to purely invest in tokens. They have a mandate to invest in equity plus tokens. But it definitely screws up the incentives long term, because now you have one group that's purely incentivized by the token, which is like the communities and the builders,
mm,
and then you have another group of insiders that also owns equity, right? And
right.
that's really not good. I think that's one of the worst things in the crypto markets. Everyone focuses on the pie chart, like who owns what,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but there's this whole other pie chart on
Yeah.
like 90% of these projects that you're not
Yeah.
seeing. And so like a lot of people criticize Karate Combat. They're like, oh, the founders own too many tokens or whatever. I'm like, okay, yeah, we own a lot. We also invested like tens of millions of dollars of our own money
Right.
building this, but that's the only pie chart. There's not another pie chart, right? Like there's not
Right.
some phantom other pie chart. You can actually make the token distribution look way more like colorful and even if there is this other bucket, right? It's like
Mm,
very easy to like give the founders of the project a small amount of tokens if on the other side they own 50% of the equity. But that's bad, right?
right.
That's way worse. Um and so yeah, it does, it's one of the things that bothers me because it's one of the easiest things for like trolls on the internet to be like, "Hey, you guys like own too much." But like, yeah, all right. Yeah, we own a lot. We invested,
Yeah.
a lot of our own money, and but there isn't some other piece that you don't own of it. This is just it. This is Karate Combat. Now, I should point out, nobody owns Karate Combat. Not us. We don't own it, and nobody else does either, right? It's owned by this ownerless foundation that the token governs.
Right.
Tokens currently can't own anything from a legal standpoint, but they can govern things. So,
Really cool. And there was one, I could pull up your post, but there was a word that you used to describe this entity or structure of like VC friends in an ownership of this other entity. I can't remember what it was. It was like this shorthand for something. I can't remember what that word was.
oof, I might be blanking as well.
But you know what I'm talking about, right? There was like a term, but that's okay. I'll pull it
Okay,
up later if it comes to me. Um, Now, I wanted to just kind of talk about up layer two, obviously,
sure.
first layer two on Hedera. And we already talked about kind of the business rationale of building a layer two. And I think that that's refreshing because, as you said, obviously, most of the times a layer two is done to get around performance issues, but this is more around interoperability.
Yeah, to date. I think that's changing really fast though. If you talk
Yeah.
to the people who like work at the roll up as a service providers and stuff like that, and now you're seeing like lots of L2s launch on Solana and they're calling them network extensions or
Okay.
whatever. But they're L2s and it's for some business logic because
Hmm.
um yeah, I mean to really fully understand it, you have to go a little bit deeper. So like the up token, ideally, it will not just capture value from transaction fees that happen, from the fans of these various sports leagues and esports teams and fantasy sports platforms, but it will also capture transaction fees that happen because people build applications on top of them, right? So like
Right.
nobody's going to come in and build a bunch of these emergent applications on top of up only gaming unless there's multiple up only gaming properties out there, but there's tons of things that you can build on top of the up only gaming primitive. We have lots of ideas for it that we laid out in the article.
Hmm.
And the cool thing is, like, even though we don't have like a license agreement with like these emergent layers on top of up only gaming, they're still like generating transaction fees for the up network. So it's like this really interesting way to license out software that I think will become quite popular because I think like sort of every consumer, I think most of the successful consumer apps in Web3, they're going to use Web3 as like sort of an enabling technology, like a spice, a flair, a special piece on top of some great product, right?
Hmm.
It's not going to be the BL and end all. Like once you get outside of like infrastructure, like core infrastructure and DeFi, like DEXs and borrow lend and stuff, I think most of the successful consumer apps Web3 is going to be a part of it, right? And if
Right.
Web3 is a part of it, then it can probably be a part of it for other consumer apps. And once you've created it yourself and you've proved it, why not find a way to share it with other consumer apps? And so how do you do that? Like how do you license it out? And I think NL2 is a really interesting way.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's about like almost rethinking the way software is distributed. Um, that's really cool to think about it that way because generally I think that the reaction I have is like layer two is always about solving for performance. But to your point, even outside of Hedera, it's like it turns out there's a lot more uses for it. There's a lot more different ways to think about a layer two. So I that's really interesting. And just diving a little deeper based off of the information I've been able to gather, um, I understand that and correct me if I'm wrong, but the up layer two is an EVM ZK roll up with ERC20 tokens that live on it. They roll up into the Hedera smart contract service. And so I wanted to see if like you were able to kind of give like a bit of a map of like, what is this layer two? How does it interact with the Hedera network? What Hedera services are you leveraging for the layer two?
Oh man, I should have had my CTO on for this one, to be honest.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, we should probably bring him in for a follow-up.
Hey, yeah. Hey, I'll make a note of it here. Let's do a part two for some more technical stuff. I love that.
Cool.
But now, talking a little more about the up token,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen, I think, and you made a good point. I think in you're on the HBAR Bull show on Friday. You mentioned this in a clip that I saw that was a great point. Is I don't think a lot of people talked about this, but the up token that's going to be a part of this layer two, 10% of that supply is going to go towards incentivizing kind of like DeFi on Hedera, and then 30% is going to go to karate holders. And I was curious if there was any more to kind of unpack there, like how up token is going to impact the Hedera ecosystem
Sure,
and
sure.
your layer two network.
Okay, well, we could talk about the 10% first. So,
Yeah.
10% of it will go to incentivize um, DEX pairs on Hedera, borrow lend pairs on Hedera, HBAR staking onto UP, HBAR weighted airdrops, etc. Like the exact plan doesn't exist yet, but it's happening.
Yeah.
And it'll take, a few years to all play out. You obviously can't do it all at once. 30% is expected to go back to the karate token holders. Also, I would say like the exact mechanics there aren't completely worked out. Like the ideal way to do it would be actually through Karate Combat's up only gaming. That might be too tricky. So I think a large portion of it could just be through like a karate tokens staking program.
Gotcha.
But some
Okay.
of it'll probably be through up only gaming as well.
That's pretty cool. And so the up token is going to be like an ERC20 token living in the up layer two.
It will be an ERC, whatever it's called when
Right.
it's
Yeah.
on an L2. Yeah, so it'll be
Okay.
EVM compatible token, but it will be wrapped onto Hedera and probably
Gotcha.
other networks as well.
Gotcha. Okay. And then karate obviously is an HTS native
Uh-huh.
asset. And so that I guess would kind of work the opposite where it's
Exactly.
brought up and wrapped in the L2.
Exactly.
Right. And so something else that you've mentioned is so the kind of bringing all this together with this up layer two is you're going to have karate combat, up only gaming, all these kind of, I read in the article, 20 to 30 other projects kind of living in this layer two, all kind of leveraging their, let's say, kind of native or wrapped assets that might come from other networks that they might be bringing over, interoperating on this layer two, feeding back into those networks. And so the karate project originating on Hedera, that could be a similar story to other projects where there might be a project that originates on one network that might just start beaming up into up layer two, or originate in the up layer two and kind of beam back down into
Any
another
and
network.
all of the above.
Love it.
It's the idea, and there's a decent amount of integration work to do, and maybe it
Yeah.
takes us a year to like, integrate to like every popular network or whatever. But the important thing is the user experience has got to be as good as it is for Karate Combat.
Right.
So you need, let's say, it will be the user experience if you have a token on Hedera or up, going to be quite easy. But we also need to make it really simple if someone already has like a meme token on Solana, right? And they want to rerun hamster racing. There needs to be a way for them to send the Solana token to a Solana wallet in the app, press a button, and when they press a button, it wraps and stakes the tokens to up.
Right. Yeah. That's this also too. Yeah, we talk about layer twos solving for different things, and it's also you keep kind of bringing up this theme of like the UX, the user experience, and so having a layer two, correct me if I'm wrong, is like that could also be a motivation for you guys as well as like really bringing a new level of user experience in your own kind of ecosystem with all these different projects.
It wasn't a motivation. There's some side benefits, I would say, but it wasn't the motivation.
Right.
The user experience on Hedera is already very good.
Yeah.
Um, there's some quirks on Hedera, like account creation and
Token
non-EVM
association. Now
wallet tokens. Yeah,
that's
there's
handled
definitely
now, which
some
is nice.
quirks there, but that wasn't the motivation. The motivation is really a way to license out up on the gaming and in a way that makes it all happen as fast as humanly possible.
I love that. There was a great comment made by just a viewer here, Jay Cool. I think this is great. It's like we hear time and time again, we built an L2 because the L1 isn't scalable. But this, again, I think is feeling very fresh for people taking some time now to sit with this news, and especially even just this conversation we're having, really just rethinking what this is all about. It's to me, it feels like just like a way better rationale. And now component of this is obviously you've got this layer two. This is a cake. We got a layer two. We got a layer one. What's in the middle? And something that I kind of have heard you kind of speak on a little bit, and I've kind of heard is like this H stack, if that's the name, and it's
Sure.
a set of tooling that you will be open sourcing for other folks to build layer twos on Hedera. I was curious if that was something maybe you wanted to talk about a little more.
I'd love to. Yeah, so we're doing the work to build our own L2 on Hedera. And that work itself is something that every project that comes in shouldn't need to replicate. And so we're going to take that work and open source it so that any other project that comes in for their own business reasons um, and wants to launch an L2 on Hedera can do so much more efficiently.
That's all. I love that. I love when projects decide to just really do the heavy lifting to make something possible and clearing that path and leaving that bridge down for everybody else. That's one thing that I was really, really excited about to see. And so obviously there's not a ton of details there, but that I think is a really important thing that I wanted to highlight was that component of it, because it's a stretch from saying like, we want to make an L2 on Hedera to like actually doing it.
Yeah, so we're trying to make that gap as small as possible because I do think that I think there's like an innumerable number of like business rationales to launch your own L2 once it's easy enough.
Mm, love it. Now, is the up layer two? Maybe this is a dumb question, but is it for sports only, or are we going to
No,
start to see a bunch of crazy stuff on there?
I hope so. So if you remember back this summer or a little bit earlier, we actually did a poker tournament on Up Only
Oh,
Gaming,
okay.
right? And by the way, we came up with that idea in like a day and we
Okay.
shipped it in like a day. We were having this poker tournament and then we're like, holy shit, like we should be doing Up Only Gaming on
Yeah.
this. And all we did was like brainstorm about how to like edit the content and like the structure of the different Up on the Gaming picks. We didn't change any smart contracts or anything, and it just sort of alongside a bunch of projects reaching out to us, it just sort of reinforced like how diverse the use cases are for Up on the Gaming. I can talk about some of them. So like the really obvious one is sports leagues, right?
Yeah.
If it works for Cardi Combat, it's going to work for other sports leagues, especially um, sports leagues that are individual athletes, but there's no reason it doesn't work for team sports as well. And then, okay, one step away is, okay, does it work for sports teams, right?
Right.
Question, I don't know. I think the answer is yes, because instead of just picking who's going to win, it becomes more like quote unquote prop bets. Now, again, this is not gambling, but there's a number of ways like fans of an individual team can make predictions within that team. So like
Gotcha.
how much is the team going to win by? Um, you know, uh, how many like yards or like home runs or who's going to get MVP of the event, all types of stuff. So I think there's tons of like quote unquote prop bets to make if you're talking about an individual team. Obviously, if it works for esports, or sorry, if it works for sports, it probably works for
Yeah.
esports
That'd
quite
be
well. And
huge.
we had a number of esports, teams reach out to us. Um, one step away from that, and probably where we've got the most inbound is from fantasy sports. Because I think people look at Karate Combat and they're
Right.
like, hey, if they're doing this for one sports league, like why can't I do it for every single one? Right. And so like I think fantasy sports is an absolute no brainer. We'll have a number of fantasy sports apps launching. I think a really interesting use case is for like a true real money gambling platform or sports book. They you know, gambling and sports books, all comes down to acquiring users and retaining them.
Hmm.
And now a third piece of it with the crypto native ones is like token utility. And I think Up Only Gaming can assist with all three of those things. One, they can get an app into the App Store. They can't get a gambling app into the App Store, but they can get an
Right.
Up Only Gaming app in the App Store, use App Store flows to acquire users. Then they can use them to engage them daily and reacquire them by giving them kind of like free up on, no loss Up Only Gaming picks.
Hmm.
And lastly, many of these casinos have tokens now, so they're all looking for ways to add token utility. But you can get weirder from there. I mean, someone was
Yeah.
talking to us about like a AI debate app that they wanted to do. I mean, I think meme coins like will definitely get some meme coins
Yeah.
on here that want to add token utility and re-engage their users every day with fun contests and stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. It gets your brain going because obviously you think karate combat sports, but then you have
Yeah.
team sports. You keep pulling back these, for lack of a better term, layers of this stuff,
Yeah.
and you can start to get into some pretty wacky territory. And then you talk about AI stuff, and I'm like, all right, that sounds
And then
that
once you
sounds
get
nuts.
and then once you get people building applications on top, it becomes even more and more compelling because like there's
Right.
even more and more things to do.
That's awesome. And really wrapping this all together is, again, it creates all of this interoperability, and you just make it so easy for people to get access to the karate combat crowd. You make it easy for the karate combat crowd to get access to all these other crowds, and so you're kind of putting everybody into this ecosystem. And once they enter in through one door, they kind of go, oh, there's all these other things I can just go over and slide into, essentially.
That's our hope, yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
And we do have a questing module in the app, so hopefully like we'll be able to share users with them, and they're gonna have a clone of our app, and they could share users with us,
Right.
and these are like real fans, right? And so and probably a lot of people who are just getting exposed to crypto for the first time. So it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. Okay, so I wanted to just, I only have a couple more questions, but I wanted to just kind of bring it back to karate combat. I haven't had the chance to head out to a karate combat event yet, but
It's
to be
horrible.
honest, I know, I
What the
know.
hell?
Dude, I can't even describe the FOMO of all these different things. Like, just watching, I'm like, oh god damn it, it's so good. And I'm watching like the production quality getting better and better, and the broadcasts are feeling smoother and smoother. And there's like this goofy qualities to them too, where I'm like, wait, is like Hawk Tua talking to like RFK? They're taking a selfie, and then there's like a guy getting kicked over here. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's the embodiment of like the chaos of crypto. I think it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I wanted to just, bringing up some of those moments, like, um, did you have any kind of like favorite craziest moments or
Oh
memories,
wow.
or even kind of behind the scenes stuff that kind of just popped to your mind that are
Oh,
like
that's such a hard
embedded?
question. My favorite part of the events is always like the end, because like
Okay.
the beginning is so like nerve wracking.
Yeah.
So I would say in general, I always really enjoy the last few fights because I know like, okay, everything's gonna go fine. Probably not
Right.
gonna lose power, internet.
Yeah.
Probably not gonna be some sort of like massive problem.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say is in general is like when I get to finally relax towards the end of an event and be a normal fan.
I
Um,
I resonate with that so much. I used to be in like a rock and roll band, so it's like putting on shows and performing and stuff. It's like you're always like, oh my god, is an amp gonna blow out? Am I gonna
yes.
lose a drumstick? It's like and you're on the last song, and you're like, all right, home run, we made it, we're all good. Have there ever been any like touch and go moments where you're like, uh oh,
Oh my God, so many.
yeah? That's crazy. There's something about live events. Like, it's why I do this show live too, where it's like, there's something exciting about like the wheels could fall off any minute, that's exciting for people. I think that's why
Yeah.
people tune in. It's just, you don't know what could happen. And clearly, like in the last couple events, every minute I'm like, wait, what's going on now? Who
Yeah.
showed up? Like Joe Rogan showing up was crazy.
Yeah.
That was
It's
wild.
luck.
Yeah, a lot of it is luck. Now, just as we kind of, I wanted to just ask, like, in regards to just the up only layer two stuff. You mentioned that we can expect things to really start cooking in quarter 1 next year.
Yeah.
And I just want to kind of hone in on like what should folks really be kind of like paying attention to in the meantime besides karate combat. Like maybe there's developers curious about starting their own layer two, or
Uh
maybe there's some folks who just want to like ape into up. Like what's the alpha you are authorized to share, if
Oh,
any?
I mean, we have a lot of work to do, and
Yeah.
um, the hardest part is sort of on the front end. Making it clean and modular enough to share with other projects. And so, we do have like almost half a year of like work ahead of us to like kind of get it to that place. But, um, so I think in advance, it's a lot of business development,
Yeah.
finding projects that want to use it, finding projects that want to build emergent apps on top of all of our apps. Um, I think, maybe in Q1, maybe we can launch with some sort of like points program to start to really invigorate the community around like socialify stuff. And then, by the end of Q1, hopefully we're like up and running in a big way.
Love it. And then just, one more question before winding it down here, just because, I'm talking to one of the co-founders of, I think probably one of, the leading retail use case on Hedera, and one of the, I'd say leading retail use cases in crypto. Hedera is like this enterprise network that, as we've seen kind of is kind of trying to find its identity with how it caters to retail and all these different types of things. And, I've shared my criticisms in the past and stuff like that. But, from your standpoint, as you kind of see Hedera, the network, karate combat, building this retail focused use case, like what, what kind of insights or learnings have you had, building this, retail crypto behemoth on this kind of like enterprise grade network? Is there any kind of friction in that regard, or is there any learnings that you have? Because I know that a lot of people are wanting to see, more of these retail focused things, and we're seeing so much positive change in this ecosystem. And so I just want to see if you kind of had any thoughts around that, or kind of aware of those kind of conversations and stuff like that.
I mean, I guess my advice would be to other enterprises. I consider combat to be an enterprise.
Mhm.
It never gets couched that way, but we're a pretty
Right.
big org.
Okay.
And my
Hmm.
advice to other enterprises would be to leverage the retail excitement in crypto. I think that some huge portion of the people who are active in crypto are just people, right? Like retail
Yeah.
people who want to have fun and enjoy themselves. And I think in crypto, you really need to build use cases that engage and re-engage without purely relying on speculation. And so, that's
Right.
why we got so excited about up only gaming, because there's this financialization there. There's this fun there, but it's not like purely number go up type fun, which is obviously
Yeah.
unsustainable. So my advice would be to other enterprises to focus on building applications that are fun.
I
Um,
love that. I hear that theme so many times, especially again in the Hedera ecosystem is fun, and I mean, there's a lot of that debate in the Hedera ecosystem of like, are we going to see enterprise adoption first? Are we going to see retail adoption first? It's like this enterprise versus retail type thing, and you kind of hit on that pretty well, where it's like, well, it's not like a choice between one or the other. It's like realizing that, retail is that stepping stone to like that broader adoption. And there's this engine, these people that are ready to kind of, as we've seen with karate combat, like dive in, create value, have fun. And, it's really interesting that you guys kind of self-identify in a way as an enterprise, because it's hard to argue that you're not in a way. I've always seen you as retail, but that's a very interesting kind of way to see it. And from that perspective, you guys are kind of like this growing enterprise that is taking that path, that's like starting with retail
Yeah.
versus, and this is maybe what we're getting at a little bit with some of the old school stuff. So that's really interesting to hear it articulated that way. I wasn't expecting that answer, but
Thanks.
that's really cool. I love that. So before we go here, like, I really appreciate you coming on. I can imagine you're a super busy guy, and we'll have to do a part two for sure to get nerdy with stuff. That'd be fantastic. But was there anything else that you wanted to chat about, or did we manage to cover most, or hopefully all of it?
I guess if you have any ideas about how we can help the network or other projects on the network, I know you've got like a really broad funnel and you're paying attention to this stuff. Any ideas for us about how we can like push the marketing or anything like that?
I would say, I think that, I'll just be really honest here. I think that, and to preface this, did you see that? I feel really bad that I posted it. I know that it grabbed attention, but I posted that video of myself. I think it was a Karate Combat 48 or 47. I can't remember what it was, but I was like, the event was happening. It was massive, and Hedera wasn't like interacting with it while the event was happening. So the next day, I posted a video, and I was like, "What's going on? Hedera marketing is this." And that. Like, did you see that
I
video?
think I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so where I come from it is I think that what I love to see is, and it comes back to kind of Hedera being this, enterprise focused network that maybe doesn't embrace retail the way they should. I think that it's important for the community to understand that Karate Combat does a great job in bringing entities like Hedera into the fold in this stuff, and really having positive experiences, and like the ads that are running for Hedera. And I see like saucer swap promotions and all these different types of things. And then just one idea that I had that could take to the next level, because since that video, there's so much more engagement and stuff. I hope I don't know if I played any real part in that, to be honest, but I think of sports, and I think of these segments in sports where it's like, replay brought to you by, Colgate toothpaste and
Uh-huh.
the, whatever hour. And you guys have an official meme coin, and you've got like DeLorean as the auto sponsor. It's like, that stuff is so great to see. It just invokes that kind of sports stuff. It would be really awesome to kind of see what pathways look like for projects on Hedera to like, be a part of some of those moments,
Sure.
or because, and we've seen like little hints of that. Like, it was so cool when you had like the HBAR Bull speak at one of the events, and you've
Uh-huh.
got also too all those booths for karate for Hedera projects like Bonzo Finance and
Yeah.
like Earthling. So I think more of that is so great, and
Okay.
I think that stuff is really great. And it's inherent with sports. It's like replay brought to you by this, brought to you by that. Those little
Sure.
placements, I think, go a long way for projects, because Karate Combat is such a huge entity. It means a lot when their name is attached to it.
Sure. All right, cool. That's good feedback. I appreciate it.
Right on. No, that's what this is all about. I feel sometimes I feel like this show is like I'm having like a Zoom call with you
With
know
an alien?
yeah, yeah. But I'm looking at your camera there, and I like see the Earth. I'm like, I can see my house from here. There I am.
You want to see something really cool?
Yeah, show me something cool. Oh, dude. Yo, wait, wait. You have a whole studio in there?
Yeah, I got a studio in here.
Oh my God, did they do the moon landing in there? Or maybe you
They
can't say.
did.
They did. Oh
This is
my
where it all
God.
went down.
I didn't realize, dude, I thought it was just like a backdrop. I didn't realize you had
Yeah.
like a whole a whole like green screen and stuff in there. That's hilarious. And maybe just like a random last question before I let you go. Why the name OnlyLarping? Because
Oh,
it's
jeez.
great.
I don't even know if I remember.
That's the way it is with so many
Yeah.
other stuff. But the It's Brandon D came across
Uh-huh.
because there's so many Brandons. Like, look at Hedera. Like, there's like three or
Sure.
four Brandons. So
Yeah.
I'd be doing shows all the time in different ecosystems and stuff, and I'd be like, "Hey, it's Brandon D," right? Like, to differentiate myself from
Uh-huh.
Brandon Davenport.
Uh-huh.
So I was just like, maybe that'll just be my username.
I like it. It's
Thanks,
stuck.
man.
I
it,
really
it
like
ended up
I like
sticking.
your profile pic a lot, the one you're using.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the
The
laser eyes
outline.
edition.
Yeah.
That was
Oh,
actually
isn't it still
coin.
the blue with the white outline or no?
Yeah, blue with the white outline,
Okay, cool.
and then Coinman the H Barbarian added laser eyes to it.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, I felt like it was time for some laser eyes. But yeah, that's awesome, man. We'll have to have you back for part two. I feel like the conversation just got started. It's so great to have you on the show.
Pleasure.
Huge supporter of what you're doing. And like I said, I mean, if people are waiting for mass adoption of, crypto or Hedera or whatever it is, like, guys, it's kind of happening.
Yeah.
So blink and you'll miss it. I have a feeling, but, yeah, only LARPing. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure, man. Thank you.
Right on. We'll have you back. Right on. So what a convo. Um, a lot of unexpected stuff there. I mean, I think about that. That kind of rocked my brain a little bit, asking about retail and all these different types of things. And, you know, only LARPing kind of saying, karate combat, they view it, as an enterprise. It does have a big scale to it. The names attached to it are pretty big. I think you could argue either way if it's an enterprise or not. But the fact that only LARPing kind of self-identifies karate combat as an enterprise changes my thinking about a couple things. I'm taking a minute here just to help my brain. Because I was expecting only LARPing to kind of be like, we're a retail project, combat sports, but it makes sense. They got a layer 2 starting. They're growing in size. They got a lot of staff. There's a lot of people. It's like this massive thing in the whole industry. So yeah, there is a strong argument to be made that karate combat is an enterprise. And so I'm just kind of like thinking out loud here, but when I asked them that question about enterprise versus retail, how Hedera fits into it and different stuff like that, it was really interesting to kind of, instead of only LARPing kind of saying, hey, here's what Hedera can do to help, a business or a project like us. It was more like, well, we're kind of an enterprise and this is how we approach things. And here's some advice we give to other enterprises. This is what happens in this industry. Like if you're a crypto enterprise, you know, then you got to embrace retail. And so karate combat is an enterprise embracing crypto retail, and look at what's happening. Proof's in the pudding. That's a set of thinking. That's a model. That's a formula that you can apply to all sorts of different things. And I know, Tom's watching. I mean, Tom's a smart guy. It's not a business, it's a project. Business terms, blah, 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 blah. I mean, what's an L2? What's an enterprise? What's a this? What's a that? I think my point is, when it comes to my thinking on it, it's a little different now. I no longer see karate combat the same way. I see karate combat as like the incubator for something bigger, and it's being built on Hedera. Again, we don't know everything about it yet. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we know what it feels like. And it's what we've been wanting to kind of be feeling, right? It's like, boom, great headlines, spicy takes, people coming out to this event. It's grabbing eyeballs. Influencers are coming in. It's this energy. Like you have to just kind of take a lot of different things and throw it to the side a little bit and just go off of what's happening, and it's working, and like only LARPing said, it's like the idea itself, kind of wacky. Maybe it didn't quite make sense, but there's something to be learned from there 100%. And I'm happy. And also too, is like cool that, he's open to feedback and, new ideas and different things like that. I've always thought that, I'd love to see, like this replay brought to you by, Earthlings, or like this, this brought to you by, Saucer Swap, or this thing brought to you by Bonzo Finance. It's like, boom, now we're kind of cooking a little bit. And they've got like, it's clearly got a great relationship with the foundation. And then my mind is going like, okay, there's opportunity there. Like obviously, they got DeLorean as sponsors and different things. Like what can we do to help align all this different stuff? So I don't know. I think that maybe what I'm getting at is, it's good to have a big project, business, enterprise, whatever you want to call that, in crypto that's grabbing eyeballs everywhere consistently, time and time and time again. And it's built on Hedera, right? I think that you look at the pit, the karate pit, and you've got the Hedera logo built on Hedera. It's like, what can we do to continue growing that? What can we do to continue expanding that? I love to see that. And I know that I've shared my criticisms in the past, and I know that I posted the video and stuff, but, that's what this is all about. It's just about learning. It's about change. It's about breaking the status quo. It is about breaking the rules, right? That's why this episode's called Breaking the Rules, is, that's what this talk and, not this talk, I guess this is the talk now. But that's what this is all about, is really taking a lot of this stuff and throwing it out the window. Like layer 2, what is that? It's not something anymore that's just to solve for performance. It's so many other different things. And I always this is a Hashgraph Enthusiast show. I always approach this stuff from like the Hedera bubble. I know that it's not maybe a healthy thing, but it's my thing. So I'm always approaching it from that area. 'Cause I know a lot of people watch the show. Maybe this is their first foray into crypto and they just don't know what this stuff's all about. So it's always good to kind of approach it from that way. And it sounds like we'll have a part 2. The CTO will have to set that up, and have a more technical conversation. And maybe, I'll bring on someone else to join the conversation, or something like that. But I think it'll be good. I think that'd be awesome. But yeah, big week this week, right? I mean, we've got Mondelez with their supply chain stuff, with SKUX, their coupon stuff. We've got, what else do we talk about today? We got, the Rooster Cartel with their hot sauce, HBAR payments, right? Retail stuff, rock and rolling. Hashpack, pack staking, live, Dynamite, Drop, joining the Circle Alliance, right? I mean, still got Avery Dennison transactions down. We don't know what that's about. Hedera Hackathon 2.0. Let's rock and roll. Walla Wallet leaving Android. It bums me out, but it is what it is. It's what happens. Back up your seed phrases, back up your private keys, and love to the Walla Wallet team. Jeremy and Rob. I met Jeremy last year. Good guy. And Karate Combat, man. Over 200% growth in the last 150 days. Wild. It's happening on Hedera. What can you say? If you want to support the show, easiest way to do it, is send tokens to 0.0.1725506. That's the show's wallet. Now that we've got frictionless airdrops, anything is acceptable. I guess that's on mainnet soon, but that'll be great. HBAR obviously accepted. And I sell those tokens to pay for stuff for the show. StreamYard doubled their subscription prices, so my costs for the show has gone up. So any support appreciated. And a free way to support is just follow and subscribe, right? X, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that stuff. That's all appreciated. Share the show. It helps the show grow. And yeah, again, official wallet 0.0.1725506 is the Hashgraph Enthusiast wallet. And yeah, we're breaking the rules. I mean, it's been a wild year, in Hedera. So much has happened, good and bad. And we still have, little under a quarter left. And I know that there's a Hedera Governing Council meeting this month, probably happening around now. There's a Hedera Governing Council meeting happening in November, of course. So there's all of this stuff still under the surface or still floating above about all this change that's needed and this red tape that's got to be broken and all these different things. So there's still that energy. And to be honest, I feel things have been a little quiet on that front, from the leadership front. But it feels a little different this time. Before, it was very quiet and it didn't feel right, if that makes sense. Things are a little quieter now, but I don't know. It feels like some stuff's playing out. And that's the sentiment I get talking with people in the ecosystem. And we'll just kind of have to see at this point. But I think that the community has really kind of been loud and, demanded this change. And I think that this is decentralization. This is Web3. This is what being a token holder is all about. And we just gotta go from there. So shout out again to OnlyLarping for joining the show. Fantastic episode. We'll have to do a part 2, a little more technical. And yeah, if anyone has any questions that you want me to ask, OnlyLarping in the Karate Combat CTO next time, let me know. Something would be very interesting. But with that, I'm off to go touch some grass for a bit and then get back to work. I'm hungry. I'm almost out of water. Lots of good stuff happening. Let's keep some positive vibes going, right? It's been a tough year. We need positive vibes going on. We need to have some fun, like OnlyLarping was saying, right? It's fun time. But anyways, with that, Hashgraph Enthusiasts, hello future, goodbye past.
Thanks for listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show, hosted by Brandon Davenport.
Listen to past episodes and support the show at itsbrandond.com/HBAR.